Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are tuning in from. Thank you for joining us tonight as we discuss disruptive technologies and the South African Technology Venture Capitalist section. Joining us tonight, we've got Scott Picken, CEO of Wealth Migrate, and Clive Butklow, CEO of Kalon Venture Partners and former COO of Accenture South Africa. During our presentation, Clive is going to share with us their latest investment opportunity and also what a Section 12J is and how South Africans can really take advantage of this tax-efficient investment structure. So if you're like me and you have no clue what that is or how it works, then stick around because we're going to share all of that with you. As always, I'm going to be on the back end monitoring the questions. So please do pop in your Q&A into the box throughout the webinar, and if it's not answered during the course of our panelist discussion, I will make sure that they answer it towards the end. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Scott. Welcome, guys.
Awesome, Lee. Thanks very much for having us. And Clive, pleasure to be on a webinar with you. So I just want to share my screen here quickly. Let's get up the screen. So I think what's really important is that, everyone's been hearing, and we're hearing over and over and over about the impact that COVID's been having and where the world is going, and whether it's happening in America or in England or Australia or China or Europe, or is it Africa? And I think one of the things we're going to be talking about tonight is investing in disruptive technologies. I know that many of our wealth partners have been looking at this and understanding this over the many years. But before I did, I just wanted to share who Clive and his team were, and I know that they'll go into more detail around this. I first came across Clive back in, I think, sort of 2014, 2015, and really I'll let them talk more about what Kalon is and what it actually focuses on. But specifically, as I understand it, they are one of the more sophisticated venture capitalists in the African continent, looking for unique disruptive opportunities that are not only taking place in Africa, but have the ability to scale globally. Where the relationship came from originally is that Clive was the COO, the original COO of Accenture for over 20 years. And he actually was introduced to us through Hilda Lunderstedt. So Hilda Lunderstedt is one of the oldest investors in this company. And her family office is a group called Kaleo. And with Kaleo, as I understand it, Clive, they actually invested about 40% in your first fund to be able to, in when you actually got going. So I just wanted to share with people, and a lot of people in our community know Hilda. They know Garth Wellman and the team at Kaleo, and I just wanted to bring it all together in a big picture of how it all works. The last thing that I wanted to share just before we get started is that, as Lee spoke about, we're going to be going into a tax, I don't want to say write-off because it's not a tax, it's a tax opportunity, which is a 12J in South Africa. Now, as I understand it, there's over 200 of them, and this is what Clive told me when we met last week. There's over 200 of them that are happening in South Africa at the moment. But what is important is that it's coming to an end. And so we're in tax season. We've got the end of February coming up, and it is coming to an end. And so for people that want to take advantage of this opportunity, it's not going to be here forever. So without further ado, what I really wanted to do was to welcome Clive. It's a huge honor and privilege to be able to do a webinar with you, Clive. Lee, thank you very much for putting it on. I know it was a little bit last minute. So Clive and the team at Kaleo, Garth and them reached out to us and said, look, it's tax season. Do you think your investors would be interested? And we were like, well, I always believe that adding value to people, you can do no harm, and particularly with these opportunities. And also, I think when it comes to the venture capital world, and when it comes to disruptive technologies, it's critically important to be finding teams that truly understand it. It's not just about understanding the company and whether there's potential, but it's actually working with teams of people that have been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And so Clive, it's really awesome to have you online tonight. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen because what I wanted to do is that I know Lee's got some slides that you want to run through. And once we've done that, I've got some questions that I'd love to go through. I'm always a big believer that a fireside chat, as we discussed, is far more powerful. The last thing I wanted to say before I hand over is that in 2015, through Kaleo, we were introduced to the team at Kalon. We went and spoke to them, and they were very clear to us as to some of the metrics that they would like to be seeing in terms of where a fintech company would be going, etc. And so hopefully tonight is just the start of many synergies which are possible between players and partners that are dealing in the same space. So Over to you, Lee and Clive.
Yeah, thanks, Scott, and thanks to both yourself and Lee for putting this event together. I think it's a real privilege for us to share the same platform as Wealth Migrate. You guys are really well known, and it's quite a real accolade to see what you've done with your business over the last, since, as you said, that first meeting we had probably 5-6 years ago. So well done to you guys, and welcome to all the investors or your community that have joined us tonight. So I just want to start off just with a bit of background to myself. Then I just want to talk quickly about Section 12J. Then I'll go through who Kalon Venture Partners is, talk about our investments, talk about the share price and the appreciation we've seen in the share price. And then, as Scott says, we'll open up to Q&A and hopefully questions from the audience as well. So my background really was always been an entrepreneur. I then studied a computer science, maths and applied maths degree. Was going to start my own business, a tech business, and I used the word seduced by Arthur Andersen at the time. It was actually the consulting division of Arthur Andersen, the auditing company, and joined Andersen Consulting. And I was going to spend 5 years there to really learn the ropes and do as much learning before I started my first tech company. And it just so happened that I lasted 28 years there till and the last 6 as CEO. The 5 before that, I was the head of their technology business, and I headed up some of their sales across the globe. What I also did, which was I had the real privilege of doing while I was at Accenture, was I was working building global businesses, and also had the opportunity to work in places like Silicon Valley with the venture capitalists, investing capital, building businesses. I worked in New York, Boston, India, Israel. So I really had the privilege of working all over the world, where I really cut my teeth and learned my skills. And to apply those skills, once after I retired in 2012, I failed retirement. And really started I joined a venture capital company on the board, and then started Kalon Venture Partners, my own CEO and founder, about 5.5 years ago. We've raised about 150 million rand, and we're looking at raising another 50 million rand for one, invest in some of our current portfolio, and number 2, invest in some new investing companies. Just before I move on to the first slide, I want to talk quickly about Section 12J. So, I mean, I think I'm sort of Section 12J out because there's so much emailers, I'm responsible probably for half of them, going out there advertising Section 12J and advertising the tax benefits. But just in case you're not aware of it, so Section 12J was promulgated by National Treasury and SARS in 2009 with a 12-year sunset clause. And the 12-year sunset clause expires in June of 2021, so in a few months' time. We were a venture capital company number 30 that started about 5.5 years ago, and now there's over 200 Section 12Js in South Africa. So by way of example, if you have a 100,000 Rand taxable income, now that taxable income could be PAYE, it could be dividends, it could be interest, it could be a capital gain, it could be anything. So any type of taxable event that you might have. Let's assume that you have a 100,000 Rand taxable event. Let's assume you invest 100,000 Rand into any Section 12J, including Kalon. You would then have 2 choices. If you're at the marginal tax rate, you either pay 45,000 to SARS, and you keep 55,000 in your back pocket, or you pay 100,000 Rand to a Section 12J, and you get 100% deduction from your taxable income. So an investment of 100,000 Rand into Kalon, you're actually getting a 55% or 45% risk-free capital. So you're actually only investing 55, but you're actually getting the hundreds worth of value. So when we pay you back, once we start returning dividends, once we sell the companies, we first pay you your 100,000 back, and only then we start taking and sharing in the profits. And we share 20%, and our investors share at 80%. There is a couple of limitations on that, though. So you have to get that tax saving, you'll get the tax saving immediately. So if you invest now, you'll get the tax saving in February at the February tax year end. But the one caveat of that, or the key caveat, is you have to hold those shares for 5 years. If you don't hold them for 5 years, SARS will knock on your door and they'll take their tax back. So this is a long-term investment. It's not a short-term investment. So I really would like, and I'm sure Scott will ask me more questions, or if there's any questions from the audience, a bit more about any other things you might want to know about Section 12J. So that's in a nutshell, and I'm going to ask Lee to go to the next slide. So just who are we? We've got a management team with over 200 years business building, technology, investment experience. We have Romeo Kamala, the ex-CEO of Vodacom Africa, myself, ex-CEO of Accenture, Ron Varsha, who's my COO, who's an ex-entrepreneur. We've got Gil Sperling, who sold his business, Popeye Media, a few years ago and it's in the public domain for about 400 million. Got Arnold Bessarabi, who was the ex-CEO of Fetcher and sits on many boards today. Got Eddie Oblowitz, non-executive director, who's ex-Arthur Anderson as well, and he's just recently joined our board. As Scott said, we've got Nicholas Lieben from Kalon Capital. Nick is sitting on our board, and Kalon was our anchor investor, and they put 40 million rand into our fund. We've got Fatima Habib, a very well-established businesswoman, and has just moved to the UK with her hubby, who's just taken up, I think, a vice chancellor role at one of the UK universities. And we've got Gil Ovid, who just sold the Creative Council a few years ago for close to R1 billion. So our board is very experienced. We've had a lot of exits in our own right. We've really built a lot of tech businesses. I'm probably on my, not exaggerating, on my 100th tech business that I've probably built. And I wouldn't say all have been successful, probably 5 have probably failed, but those have probably been the best teacher, the ones that I failed at opposed to the ones that I succeeded at. So a lot of experience in tech venture capital and tech investments and tech exits. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to focus on tonight, and I'm not going to make this presentation long, but we've got in our fund 2, which is where if you decide to make an investment into Kalon and save that taxable income, we have 6 investments. And I'm going to go through each of these investments and some of the milestones that these companies have achieved. And hopefully you recognize many of these brands. And I'll go through each one by one. Next slide, please. So the first company is, and unfortunately I can't ask people to put their hands up, but I'm going to ask everyone who probably has used Ozo, who knows about Ozo. So what Ozo is really an electronic funds transfer payment solution. So when you go to Takealot and buy something on e-commerce sites like Takealot, or you're going to Incredible Connection, or you're going to bricks and mortar stores, or over 4,500 merchants, you'll see an option to pay with a credit card, a debit card, or electronic funds transfer. Typically, if you see electronic funds transfer, 95% chance that's going to be Ozo. It is the most advanced and largest EFT payments provider in South Africa, and hopefully soon to be around the globe. You can use it on your smart device. It just uses a QR code. It's very great for COVID. You don't have to touch any POS machine, and you can use the solution provided by Ozo. Currently, we came in Ozo about 3 years ago, and 3 years ago they were doing 15 million rands worth of revenue. This year we're going to hit, or have just hit, 100 million. At the end of February, we'll be on the 100 million rand mark from a 15 million rand 3 years ago. So you can work out the growth. So the growth we had this year in Ozo was about, from a high base of over 50 million, we had about 81% growth. Our payments process value was 120%, 133% increase in the number of transactions processed. So we did 25 million transactions through our platform. On Black Friday alone, we had 2,000 transactions per second going through our solution Ozo at any one time. What's really interesting is the total value of payments processed to date, since they started the company about 5 years ago, as I said, we invested about 3 years ago, is over 10 billion rand. But what's more interesting than that is the first 1 billion of what we call gross merchant value. So that's the total amount of money that goes to all the platforms that use Ozo. The first 1 billion rand took 2 years, 9 months, and 16 days to get to the 1 billion rand mark. 2 years, 9 months, and 16 days. The last billion rand took us in November. We hit the first billion in a month. It took us 26 days. So in 2 years, 9 months, and 16 days, it's taken us 26 days now to hit the over 1 billion rand mark. We hit the billion rand mark in November. Normally December goes down. In December, we were over 1.1 billion, and we're going to close this month of February. January, we were over 1.1 billion, and we're going to close February on track for over 1.1 billion again. At the moment, we're raising capital at a substantial increase to the raise that we came in at the 250 million we came in at. We're raising now at about a significant order of magnitude higher than, I can't mention the number, then we raised it then. And they've got 50 people today, and they should have 100 people in the next 3 months. So really ramping up for both African, South African, and global growth. And we're raising capital from both South African investors and international investors that'll help us with our international expansion. On the right-hand side there, you can just see it really is about 10, 15 of our logos of the 4,500 current either bricks and mortar or online stores that we're in. If you really use Pick and Pay or Woolies or any of those, you'll see Ozo as a payment option. So hopefully that gives you a view of not only what the company does, but it's become a market leader in the digital transformation in South Africa, and particularly in the PSP, the payment service provider space. And Oza is becoming now a local, but hopefully soon a global brand as well. Thanks. Next slide, please. Our next company is called FinChatBot. And really what FinChatBot is, you all have heard about artificial intelligence and the fourth industrial revolution and machine learning. But this uses artificial intelligence and machine learning to provide services to the financial services industry by using a chatbot. So instead of phoning the call center, we all know the frustration of phoning a call center. So let me give you an example how it works. If I go and I buy an airplane ticket, maybe not a good example at the moment, I'm taking a trip to Lisbon, it'll automatically know I've gone to Nedbank, I've paid with my ticket with a Nedbank card. It'll automatically trigger a WhatsApp to you. You'll go into the WhatsApp that's been sent to you. It'll go into FinChatBot. It uses, it's a bot, so it doesn't use, you don't have to go to a call center, and it'll walk you through using artificial intelligence and machine learning and walk you through right from who are you, what do you want to buy, what service do you want to buy, and it'll help you close the deal using our chatbot. So we've got about, it says top 20 financial service providers. We've got about the top 25 financial service providers in the country. We're sitting in about a 32 people team. We grew our revenue last year at about 102%. Our average contract value was increased by 110%. And we've already done over 5 million customer quotes through the company. What's very exciting is this is a South African company, but we've just raised $1.5 million for our European expansion. And the CEO, who's actually French, has gone off to live in Lisbon, and we've opened up offices in Lisbon, Portugal, France, and the UK. And very exciting today, I just heard word, that was only about a month ago, I just heard word that we closed our first deal in France to one of the big insurance companies in France, to the value, a small deal, but to the value of 3 million rand. So our first European deal we've just closed, and that's what we're using this $1.5 million for, is our global expansion. So you're really going to any of these top, if you look at the logos there, you name that top financial services client, if it's Standard Bank or APSA or whatever they might be, they are more than likely a FinChatBot client. And artificial intelligence and machine learning is really that disruption of the fourth industrial revolution and that digital transformation that's hitting all the corporates at the moment. It's absolutely front and center of that digital transformation. Next slide, please. Next company, another very exciting digital company that's transforming the rental industry, so the rental and the buying industry of property. So today we have two big portals in this country. We've got Private Property and we've got Property 24. And basically what they are, they're just a portal where you go and list your property, and people go to the website and they see if they can find your property or don't find your property. So what Flow is doing is disrupting the likes of the current real estate agents, the current tenants, the current agents, and actually providing, it goes straight to the source of the deal flow and actually provides leads to people wanting to either sell or to rent out a property. So this is really interesting, this company. We've got our board meeting and our strategy session tomorrow, and I was just going through the results. So there's a 70% month-on-month growth of new clients. We've added 16 more clients during December and January, and added quite a few more in February as well. The revenue growth of 30% month-on-month was until the end of December. I'm just looking at the results now. In January, our revenue grew at 48% and our billings grew at 68%. That's between December and January, which is normally a quiet month in the property sector. Our total addressable market size is about 20 million South Africans. So the business is growing at an unbelievable rate. And you can see there on the right-hand side, we've got at the moment probably 40, 50 of the top real estate agents in South Africa. And we formed a channel strategy with a company called Prop Data, which is one of the largest property aggregators in the country. And we're working with them in actually selling and leasing out properties in South Africa. So once again, a very disruptive technology, and it's disrupting not your industry, Scott, but the residential and the commercial industry in South Africa. It's disrupting both the rental and the buying and selling. Next slide, please. So our fourth company is a very exciting company, another exciting company, very much in the digital age. One of the big problems we have in the digital age, and since COVID, is a lot more devices are linking up to the internet. They say that there's 20 billion IoT, which is Internet of Things devices that are hooked up to the internet, whether it's your mobile phone, whether it's a sensor in the fridge, or whether it's a sensor on your fridge or a sensor on your car, it doesn't matter what it is. And there's going to be 200 billion devices in the next 5 years connected to the internet. And one of the risks of that is cybersecurity. So I was actually, just before COVID, or just during COVID, I was actually scammed, where someone actually sent me an email from Standard Bank. I thought it was www.standardbank.co.za. It was someone I knew there, and they asked me to put my details in, and I lost 14,000 Rand because of a cybersecurity threat. So what Sendmark does, it makes the internet a safer place. It prevents what they call phishing and spoofing. So basically what it means is, if I take Kalon as an example, my URL is www.kalonvp.com. Now, before we install Sendmark, someone could go and say, from my email address is cliveb@kalonvp.com. So Scott, you could go and send an email from cliveb@kalonvp.com and send it out to anyone and really impersonate me and pretend that you me, if you knew how to do it. If you install Sendmark, it prevents that 100%. You cannot send an email from someone else's domain, and it takes phishing and spoofing completely out of the equation. So basically makes the internet a safer place. So as you can see there on the right-hand side, we've really closed. We've got over 140, on the left-hand side, 141 active customers. It's already, since this presentation, about 160 now. We've got over 600 customers on trial, and we've got over 3,300 domains on Sendmark. Domain is your URL, your www. That's 3,306 domains on Sendmark. We've established partnerships in the UK, the US, Germany, Chile, Argentina, and we've just closed our first couple of deals in the US. We've just closed YPO, which is Young People's Organization. You've got the logo on the right-hand side there. We've just closed that as a global client. And we really are growing we grew 800%, between 800% and 1,000%. It depends which way you look at it, during calendar year of 2019. But I'll talk more, 2020. I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. So really, this company, we invested about just over 12, 13 months ago. And we're seeing, as I say, we've seen between 800% and 1,000% monthly revenue recurring run rate. And what's very nice about this company from a venture capital point of view, it's a software as a service business. And what I mean by that is, you pay once for the software and then you pay every single month forever. You never stop paying for the software unless you decide you don't want the software anymore. So you sell it once and you keep on making money while you sleep. So they're already doing, as you can see on the bottom left-hand side there, they've done a 10 times MRR. MRR stands for monthly recurring revenue. So the company's grown 1,000% in monthly recurring revenue since our investment in December of 2020. We've also closed a lot of other clients. The team went to see, not last week, the week before, they went to see Naspers. And I think it was the same day or the next day, Naspers signed their contract to implement Sendmark. They also signed the contract for Prosus. You would all know Prosus, the Naspers company listed on the Amsterdam Stock Exchange. So we just closed those two clients in 2 days. So these guys are closing 30, 40, 50 clients every single month on Sendmark and growing at this incredible rate. So very exciting. As the internet gets bigger, this technology is needed more and more and more. And you can see there we've closed across financial services companies, legal companies, manufacturing companies, literally everyone that needs to protect their domains. And there's millions and millions and millions of domains around the world. And they need a company like Sendmark that's doing that protection. Next slide, please, guys. The next company is a company called Mobus. Sorry, it's coming up now. So Mobus is a digital marketing company. Now, you might say, but Clive, there's lots of digital marketing companies out there, and there are. But what's different about Mobus, it uses what they call smart SMS. So this is a hyper-personalized digital marketing campaign. And what we find with Mobus, we have a typical email marketing campaign or an SMS marketing campaign. An email marketing campaign, if you send 100 emails, you might get a 0.5% of people actually opening up your email and actually reading more and converting to a paid user or a converted user. What we find with Mobus, that 0.5% goes up to about 20 to 40% of people actually convert using Mobus. So what Mobus does, it uses a hyper-personalized email address. Let me give you an example of that. If Scott and I are both customers of, let's say Sportsman's Warehouse as an example. And Sportsman's Warehouse we're just closing a deal with Sportsman's Warehouse now. And Sportsman's Warehouse want to send a a flyer or a marketing advert to Scott and I. Now, I'm assuming Scott's a golfer. I don't know that. But Scott, as he opens and hits his smart SMS, he will get things that a golfer will use. You'll get putters, you'll get golf balls, you'll get clothes, etc. I'm into boxing and martial arts, so I'll get all the stuff that you use for boxing and martial arts. So if we're selling to 1 million customers, you can have 1 million different hyper-personalized Moby sites. There's very few countries in the world that actually do this, and Mobi's is one of the top companies. What's really interesting is Mobi's. So we invested in about October of 2019. They've sent last year, it sent 700 million SMSs. They've got greater than about 30 blue chip enterprise clients now. When we invested, they were doing 16 million in revenue, and last year, between January and December, they did 64 million in revenue. That 274% growth on the left-hand side there is actually incorrect. I just noticed it now. It's actually 300% growth that they did on an annual basis last year. So they went from 16 million to 64 million in 1 year. And we've just signed a deal now with Telkom. Telkom's got 200,000 small SMB, small, medium-sized businesses, and they're going to have Mobi's, have the ability to buy Mobi's off the Telkom, what they call Yellow Pages exchange or Yellow Pages portal. They're going to be able to buy Mobi's for that. We are currently in a race for Mobi's. We're raising $4 million at a very high valuation. Once again, I don't want to release that because we're in a lot of discussions with venture capitalists and other investors. And that money is going to be used, at $4 million, is going to be used for our American expansion. So we've already closed our first few clients in America, and we've got about 600 leads of people that want to use Mobi's, but we need to set up the agreements with the telco providers. And the reason we need the telco providers is because this is what you call zero-rated Mobi's. So a lot of people in South Africa don't have access to data. We don't realize that maybe everyone on the court has access to data and has data. But millions of South Africans don't have any data. So Mobi's is zero-rated. And what zero-rated means is it means Mobi's has got agreements with the likes of Cell C and Vodacom, M10 and Telkom, that you can use this without having any data. So if I send you an SMS, you can open up the smart SMS, you can get that page, you can interact with the page, but you don't need to have any data. We will then pay, and we have an agreement with the big telecommunication providers, we'll then pay them, but you can do it at a zero data cost to yourself. As I said, we continue January, February, we're growing just as fast as we were growing last year, and we're seeing an incredibly good month for February, and hopefully should close at a now sizable increase since our last month when we closed at the end of February. And as I said, we're raising capital for our global expansion, and we've got over 30 people in the team already from about 6 people when we invested. Last slide, last company, please. So this is the last company, the 6 of our companies. This investment we made it. It says invested December 2020. Sorry, that's actually an error. We invested about 5 months ago. So CarScan it's an augmented reality and artificial intelligence based application, and it really is helping insurance companies with quotes for bumper bashing, or it's helping car sellers like Cars 45 in Nigeria, or like OLX that have these car portals. So let me tell you what happened to me in about November pre-COVID. I was driving my car and I had a bumper bash. So what was the experience I had? I phoned my insurance company and they said to me, Clive, you need to go to 3. First, they're going to send out an assessor. So they sent out an assessor that took about a week and a half, 2 weeks. And the assessor looked at my car and said, you must go to 3 panel beaters and I'll give you 3 quotes. I went out to 1 panel beater and I got 3 quotes from the same panel beater for 3 different companies, because it's a very fraudulent industry, unfortunately, in the panel beating space. 2 more weeks after that, I got the quotes back from the panel beaters, and probably took 3 to 4 weeks. I finally got my car into the panel beater and got the car started to be fixed. So what problem does CarScan solve? So what it does now, it's as you have the accident, you send a WhatsApp immediately to whoever your insurance company is, Telesure. Telesure will send you a WhatsApp back. It'll go into CarScan and it'll use CarScan to use its augmented reality technology and artificial intelligence technology to actually go in there and take pictures of the car, a 360-degree view of the car, and it will show you how to take the pictures of the car. Most insurance companies today just use pictures. They don't use the right pictures or pictures that you can see the dent. And using CarScan, you can see every little scratch, every problem with a tire, with a window, with the shield, any damage on your car. You'll walk around the car. It'll create a 360-degree view of the car, a fully virtual 360-degree view. You automatically send it to what CarScan will do. It'll pick up. It's got about 500 panel beaters on its platform. It'll pick up the 3 or 4 closest panel beaters to the GPS location of where your car is. They'll get the quote. In 15 minutes, the insurance companies will get the quote. They don't need an assessor, and they'll have that in 1 hour. They'll have the quote back to the panel beater and award them the work. And literally in 2 hours, you'll have your car at the panel beater, and your panel beater will be working on your car. So basically, from 3 weeks, what it took me, it takes 2 hours using CarScan. Now, we've invested ourselves and 2 other companies invested in CarScan, ourselves, another a venture capital company, and an African company, a venture capital company called Launch Africa, or angel investor company called Launch Africa. We've got a number of deals already. We've closed. We've been working with Motors. We've just closed Telesure. We're closing Cars 45 in Nigeria. As I said, they are the biggest car sell by portal in Africa. They've got offices in West Africa, other parts of West Africa. They've got offices in Kenya and East Africa, and they're rolling out to 14 African countries. And they also want to form a joint venture with us, or a strategic alliance with us, to take it out to all the countries where OLX operates in about 15 different countries. One of the POCs we're doing, as I said, in Africa, we're also doing one in Germany. We've got agreements with Dimension Data, Deloitte, Tracker, and many more enterprise customers. We invested, as I said, there was a total investment raise of 10 million Rand. And so this technology is, the demand has been completely outweighed the supply. We've actually had to stop saying we don't have enough capacity right now. Let's focus on the 10 clients we've got, the 10 biggest clients, the 10 best clients, so we can really make it an unbelievable user experience. And basically the company's grown by 200% in revenue since we invested 4 or 5 months ago. So very exciting technology, very deep tech, what I'd call deep tech as a technology person. It's got, we're using a number of South African developers, but also Indian developers with 20 years of software engineering experience to really build this machine that's going to learn. And what it's going to do over time, it'll learn the exact cost of an accident. So if you've got, I drive a Jag, if I just have a bumper bash on my Jag, it'll know first and foremost, it'll know what damage was on my car when I bought the car. It'll know what damage is on my car now. It'll look at the difference, and it'll automatically prepare the quote for the insurance company using artificial intelligence and machine learning. You won't have to go and get quotes from 3 panel beaters. It will be done for you automatically through the CarScan technology. So you think about the fraud, we're also using it in rental cars. So what a rental car agencies do, they take a picture using CarScan as the car goes out. And when the car comes back in, they take a picture using CarScan and immediately says there's a problem or there's no problem. The issue that the car companies have now is you come back and there's a scratch, they say, no, the scratch was already on the car. And then you have this big argument and an arm wrestle about who caused the damage. Well, with CarScan, that debate goes away because the technology never lies and gets it right every single time. So very exciting company, growing very, very fast. And yeah, we're looking at going to be raising a very large round of capital probably in the next 6 to 9 months. And that's the last of the 6 technology companies. So when you make an investment, next slide, please, Leith. When you make an investment into Kalon, those 6 companies, we've been going, the second fund, which is, it's an existing fund, you will actually have access to those 6 companies. So we're going to put further capital into those 6 companies, plus we're going to invest in a few new companies. But that's the companies you'll be investing into a portfolio that's already existing. So people might say this is a risky asset class, and maybe it is on the higher risk side of an asset class, but we've actually de-risked the risk because of the results that you're seeing on this page. So Mobers, as I said, 300% growth, Senmark 800% growth, Flow 117% growth, FinChatbot 102% growth, Ozo 81% growth, that's at 100 million, and CarScan 200% growth. So all these companies, our lowest is 81%, and our highest is between 800 and 1,000% growth we've seen for calendar year 2020. And I'm sure there's questions about this, and I'm happy to take questions on that. Next slide, please. We've got a very, very healthy deal flow, and that's always when investors say, well, what's your deal flow? We're just closing an investment into an education tech, an edtech thing in the middle there. So a very exciting edtech company, which is doing K-12 in America. Plus, it also bridges the gap between high school in America and higher education and going out to get your first job. I think anyone that's done a degree will know often you get a degree and you start your first job and you have absolutely no clue of what you're doing. If you're an entrepreneur, or if you're in sales, you're in many, many things. And we actually bridge the gap between higher education and the workplace, or school education, college education, and higher education. And then we've got many, many other, we've got over 200 million rands worth of deals in the pipeline at the moment. So that's why we're looking at raising further capital. A last slide, please, Lee. So the people that invested last year and the year before in 2019 and 2020 invested at 1,100 Rand per share. And the estimated price as of today is 1,502, excluding CGT. If I include CGT, that's about 1,404 Rand, including CGT. And because that 1,404 is why we're raising from 1,100, we're raising at 1,400 Rand per share. And our minimum investment size is 50 shares, which calculates to 70,000 Rand. The maximum investment is something that is actually set by National Treasury, which is 2.5 million. So you can invest anything between 70,000 Rand and 2.5 million Rand. How are we doing from an internal rate of return? So that's compound annual growth rate. That's a per annum growth. If you invested at 1,100 in February 19, including all tax and rebates, 33.2%, and excluding 16.8%. If you invested last year, we're sitting at 77.3%. And if you exclude individual tax, 36.4%. So we're really on a good run. You're coming into a very strong fund. You're coming to a very proven fund. So yeah, the risk, as I said, has been de-risked from yourselves. And that last slide, I think that's the last of the slides. So just to close off to everyone, if you are interested in investing, you can just either contact me directly on Clive B, so it's CLIVE-B for Butklow, at Kalon VP, KALONVP.com, or my CEO, who is at Leron V, LERONV, at KalonVP.com. Also, you can just go to our website, which is www.kalonvp.com, and you'll see the investment mandate, and you can make an investment. Within 1 month, we'll send you the share certificate and the tax certificate, and at the end of February, you can deduct whatever you've invested from your taxable income, and you will not pay any tax on the amount that's invested. So I'm going to stop there. Sorry about the pace of my presentation. I did warn Scott that I do speak fast, but open to any questions. And Scott and the audience, we've got literally close to an hour left on the clock.
No, awesome. Well, Clive, thank you very much. I really enjoyed that. And for everyone that's on here, if you look in the chat box, I've actually been taking the companies and just dropping the hyperlinks in there so people can go and look at the companies. So, and Lee, maybe if we could just put in Clive and Leron's email as well, it might just be useful if people want to click it, just in case they didn't hear the spelling. Before we get into some questions, Lee, from your perspective, I know that you wanted to just explain why we're doing it as an off-market deal, just for clarity for our investors.
Yeah, so for our investors that have joined us tonight, this is going to be a completely off-market deal, which means we are not putting it through our marketplace at all. You will need to reach out through us to the guys at Kalon Venture Partners. At the end, we will be running a poll. You can let us know. We have also got a landing page where you can go to and show your interest. The guys from Kalon are really the experts in this space. They know their product. We don't know the product. And also because we have a very tight window of closing this, being the 28th of February. So just over a week now, where we have to close this deal. We're actually expediting it and letting the guys at Kalon do all the heavy lifting. So we will be putting you in touch directly with them. And that is the reason that we don't have it on our marketplace at all. We're not going to be involved in the sales process. Your money is going to be transferred directly to their escrow account, and they will be sending you the agreements. It will not be accounted for on the Wealth Migrate platform. So we are not going to load up the deal onto the platform. We will not be showing your transactions or anything in there. So please just understand that when we say it is completely off market, that is exactly what it is. We are just bringing an opportunity as a value add to our community. We thought it was a very exciting opportunity, a great way for South Africans to get some money back on their tax for a change, which I think is welcomed, especially coming into the end of the tax year, and also just provide you with some diversification for your portfolios.
Awesome, thank you, Lee. Can I suggest, Clive, I've got a couple of questions here, and I'll fire away with them. But Lee, can I suggest we put the poll up while we're doing the while we're asking the questions? So there was I'm just going to start with the questions from some of the guests that have joined us. Mark said, heard about Flow. Where do the funds come from? They pay out as rewards.
So I think it's a good question. So Flow's got a number of different marketplace providers. The main business model of Flow right now is not the rewards platform. That is a platform that we will be putting more effort and energy into at a later stage. The main money comes now from the agents and the landlords that actually we put the agents and landlords at a much lower cost. We get them the leads from using social media than they do from Private Property, Property 24, and all the other portals that are out there. The Flow rewards app is something that we're going to be working on at a later stage, but we do have a number of marketplace partners at the moment where they're doing advertising, where you can go straight to their portal and you can buy insurance or you can buy whatever you might need for the household. But the rewards platform at the moment is going to be released at probably later this year.
Okay. Christopher's asked, how is the valuation of the company's fund determined on entry and exit?
So that's a great question. So on entry, sorry, what was the name, Scott?
Christopher.
So Chris, the way it works now, on entry, we value it at cost. So let's just give an example. The latest investment we invested in was at, Mark, we invested at 50 million Rand. So we value that at cost at 50 million Rand. Let's assume the company then raises capital. Let's just take FinChatbot as an example. We invested, I think, about 45 million. They just raised capital now at 90 million, a 90 million pre-money valuation. So on the case of FinChatbot, where the 45 has now gone to 100 and something, because that's the actual valuation of the company. That's the one way we value them. If it's too soon, like CarScan, the valuation that's calculated in that 1400 or 1502 is at cost. Even though we've already been made offers at a much higher valuation than we paid, we're still valuing it at cost because we think it's only 4 or 5 months old and we'd rather just keep it, to be more conservative, just keep it at cost. In the example of Ozo, as an example, the last round of funding came in, the valuation was initially based on the audited financial statements as at February of 2020, and that was 750 million Rand from our 250 million Rand that we paid. It has gone up. The business has grown since then, as I said, close to 100%, and we've increased it to only about 20%, where we know we're raising at close to 100% higher than what it was valued at in our annual financial statements. So that's the 3 ways that we actually value the companies. We try and take a conservative approach, and also for 2 reasons. One is we don't want to be, I think something can go wrong, number one. But secondly, we want to make sure there's enough in it for the investors. So for the guys that come in now, that there's upside for the investors coming in, that we know all 6 of these companies are more than likely going to raise capital at significantly higher rounds than they did when we came in initially. So it's going to be hopefully a boon year for investors, and we're leaving a nice little prize there for our investors. But thanks for the question.
Chris has asked, how long or what is the duration of the investment? Is it fixed for 5 years?
So Chris, that's Section 12J. The limitation on Section 12J, as I mentioned earlier, is a 5-year investment. But being a venture capital company it's only a 5-year investment from a SaaS point of view. We believe, these tech companies, you can sell it in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years. So it could be between 5 and 8 years. It could even be 9 years. And let me give you an example of that. So I've sold companies, I've helped companies take into an IPO. And so let's take Ozo as an example. So let's just say in 3 years' time, we have an offer at 10 billion Rand to buy out the shares. But we know the company's going to an IPO and they're going to IPO at 50 billion Rand, hypothetically, whatever those numbers are. Even though we can exit at 10 billion, that's maybe a 50x on 50 times of what we invested at, we probably won't sell, even if it's 5 years. We'd rather hold on to it and get double, 3, 4 times that for our investors than sell that company. So we want to create liquidity, but we don't guarantee liquidity because we have to sell these companies either to the next investor, to another venture capital player, to a private equity player, to a management buyer, to a trade investor. It could be all sorts of exit that it could be, but it also could be an IPO. So we, as the board, will get, every time we get an offer, the board will look at it and say, yes, let's sell this company because we want to at least get our capital back to our shareholders, which is what we do want to do. So let's say we have 200 million. We want to get that 200 million back to our shareholders first, and then you've got your money back, and then we really are playing with a bank's money. So, and then you'll start getting. So we don't want to promise 5 years, but it's between 5, 8, 9 years. But because of the IPO thing, we'd rather hold it for 10 years than sell it in 8 years if we can get you as investors a 10 times extra return on your capital.
Merrick's asked a question: if a company has an assessed loss, can it invest in Kalon this year and add it to its assessed loss?
So normally, absolutely. So you can, in your individual capacity, you can do that, an assessed loss, or at a company capacity. The only concern we have now is the sunset clause, as I mentioned earlier, comes up in June of 2021. So SARS, during the budget speech next week, they will announce whether the sunset clause will be extended for another X years or not. If it's extended, absolutely, you can do that. So you probably will know before then, because I think the budget speech is prior to the 28th, and I'm going to come back to the 28th and why it has to be done by the 28th. So if in the budget speech they say Section 12J is being stopped, then the answer is no. If in the budget speech they say Section 12J is being extended, then the answer is yes. And then you can just take that assessed loss to the next year. So I think watch out for the budget speech. It will be very clear what happens with Section 12J. I'm sure there'll be a lot of noise in the marketplace. There's a lot of speculation whether it will be or won't be extended. You can understand there's over 200 Section 12J companies out there employing thousands and thousands of people. Section 12J companies, their capital have created jobs for, I think, 13 or 14,000 people at a cost per job of much lower than what the government spends in creating a job. So we're hoping for all the right reasons it is extended, but this is the government. We have no guarantees it will or won't be extended. Why the 28th is an important deadline is because we raise capital less than R1 million. So if you invest more than R1 million, you actually have got beyond the 28th of February. You can invest on the 1st of March, 2nd of March. It's actually fine because you're seen as an accredited investor, and we don't need a prospectus for you to make that investment. So you can make an investment of R1 million anytime between now and June, assuming the thing is not extended, the sunset clause. You can make an investment anytime. But for anyone investing less than R1 million, we've got a prospectus which is also on our website, and you have to. And our prospectus expires at 12 o'clock on February the 28th. So next, I think it's Sunday at 12 o'clock at night. It expires. If we get money literally at 1 minute past 12, we have to give that money back to you. Unfortunately, it actually happened last year to quite a few investors. They literally missed about 10 minutes. And, we're not prepared to go full foul of the law here. We are so highly regulated. We had to give them their money back. And they were not very unhappy, but we actually had no choice, unfortunately.
Just asked a question. If valuing at cost, what portion of the company are you buying?
So the cost and the portion, let's just say let me just say X, because this is, I can't release this information because it's not in the public domain, and the CEOs they're not comfortable to release this information. But just hypothetically, we invested 25 million into Ozo, and we've got 15% of the company. So that cost is the 15% that we invested. That cost is the 25 million. That 15% now, if they are raising hypothetically at 1.5 billion, the value of that 15% now is 275 million. So that 15% of 150 million, if my math is right, that's 275 million. So that's how we value our companies. It's just really maths.
Jürgen's asked a question: how long will SARS still have the tax benefit on the 12J? I think you've already answered that.
Jürgen, we're holding thumbs, but I can't answer that question, unfortunately.
I've got a question for you. Clive, you and I have been to many different events, and I've seen you speak many, many different times. And it's kind of like Africa's the sleeping giant. There's actually a lot of talk at the moment of the amount of capital that's gone into India and how it's starting to migrate towards Africa as well. What do you think is the opportunity for Africa, and specifically South Africa, in terms of the whole tech/VC opportunity over the next decade?
It's quite interesting. I think in our space, which is very capital efficient, capital light. So let me give you an example of that. When I worked in Silicon Valley, even recently when I was in Silicon Valley, literally what we can put 15 million rand in, $1 million will last us 12 to 18 months. That $1 million will last 1 or 2 or 3 months in Silicon Valley. So that's the difference. There you're putting in $5 million, what we can do with $1 million. So what the beauty about South Africa and Africa, but particularly South Africa, we've got unbelievable access to human capital. We've got unbelievable access to great ideas, great innovation, great entrepreneurs, but we don't have access to enough capital. So you count the number of venture capitalists like ourselves on one hand. There's not enough capital to really help these early stage companies looking for growth capital scale. So Scott, it's a great question. We just need more capital. And so the more capital that flows into 12J, the more capital that flows into venture capital, the more we've got of seeing these huge exits going out of South Africa into Africa and around the globe. If you look at our companies now, we are already, Mobus is, as I said earlier, we've got a redomiciliation in Delaware in the United States. Our company FinChatBot is looking at a domiciliation in Luxembourg in Europe because they're expanding in Europe. So we see these South African companies with this phenomenal innovation, but they're not South African companies. We are absolutely not limited to our borders in South Africa. The technologies, all our technologies, we believe, and we've seen it, they've got demand all over the world. What's also interesting is they talk about unicorns in America, so the billion-dollar companies. I'm not going to mention the name, but there's an African, it's not a South African company, it's a Nigerian company that I believe is raising capital now at $1 billion. So it's going to be the first true African unicorn ever. And it just shows you how Africa is becoming the new frontier. I always remember seeing the Times magazine 5-10 years ago. It says the lost generation. Now it's the new frontier, the new opportunity. It's so positive about Africa. 800 million people have cell phones on this continent, and most of those are actually smartphones. If you think about Ozo as a payments company, those people could not transact. They've got bank accounts, but they don't necessarily have credit cards. Using Ozo, those 800 million people can now actually buy online, which they could not do before because they don't have. Most people in Nigeria, the 200 million people living there, they've got bank accounts, but they don't have a credit card or a debit card. So they rely on a solution like Ozo. Ozo could also not only pay from a bank account, it can actually pay from a mobile wallet. So you can just see the opportunities Africa have got because we've got 1.1, 1.2 billion people on the continent. And there's just that middle class for 400 or 500 million people, which they call the missing middle, is suddenly not the missing middle anymore. They can start taking out loans. They can start making payments. They can start taking out insurance on their lives. They can start providing for their children. And we see it. I speak to my colleagues all over Africa, and we see this every single day. And we see all our companies, like I said, with CarScan and other companies of ours are getting unbelievable traction in Nigeria. And it's such a big market with having, something like 200 million people living in Nigeria. So that market is huge, and we are absolutely capitalizing on the African. So I believe South Africa is a great stepping stone for technology for the rest of the world. What it's not good at, if you're inventing cancer or the next CAT scan, we don't have that sort of capital to invent, that's needed to find the next cure for COVID or whatever it might be. That will always happen in Silicon Valley, in Asia, in Europe. It's not going to happen in South Africa. They're too capital intensive. They take too long, and we don't have that sort of capital in South Africa.
I've talked to us about this, and I'm just going to share my screen here. It's interesting. You talk about kind of 200 years worth of experience collectively between your team. And, all 6 companies you've shared are very interesting, in terms of their different aspects. But these are the type of criteria you look for. Just talk to us as to what's defined you guys and why. As you said, venture capital traditionally can be a bit hit and miss, but you've got a stellar track record here in South Africa, and it's sort of based on your investment criteria. What differentiates you from others? As you said, there's 200 other 12Js out there.
I think first and foremost, let's not. I want to say there's 5 of us probably in the tech space, and there's 195 doing all sorts of other things, which are not true venture capital, but very different risk, very different return profile. But there are, and you can Google them if you don't want to go into something like Kalon. There are other 12Js where you can get the taxable savings as well. But I'm not going to sell anyone else's 12J tonight. Those you can find online via Google. What differentiates us, I think, is because this is about, at the end of the day, who you're investing in is the fund manager. So you're investing in Clive and my team. That's who you're putting your money into. You've got to know we have the skills and ability not only to know how to pick the winners to invest in them, but how to help grow those businesses and how to help exit those businesses at a much higher valuation. So what do we look for? So we are what we call a very high-touch venture capital company. Every venture capital company will say that, but we get extensively involved. I'm on the board of all 6 companies. I'm actually the chairman of 4 of those 6 companies. I'm going to be on the board of the 7th company we're investing in now. So I literally take a board role. I'm on the phone literally either every day or at least once a week with every one of our investing companies, helping them scale their businesses, helping them find human capital, access to human capital is hard. We've got unbelievable networks of access to some of the best human capital you can possibly find for the different areas of skills that you need to build a startup. We are able to provide them the mentorship that they typically don't have. They may be 35 or they're 30 or they're 40, but they haven't had the experience that we've had as myself and the management team. We also have access to networks. With my 28 years of Accenture, I don't think there's a business in South Africa that I don't know someone that can open a door into the network and get us in there and actually make that introduction. And that's why I think we've seen so much growth. It's not just my network, it's our board's network. We've seen so much growth in our companies because we've opened up many of those channels. And this is we run like Silicon Valley venture capital company. Only difference with us in Silicon Valley is we don't have the hundreds of millions of dollars. We've got, we don't have that sort of capital. Ours is in rands, there's in dollars. So we're very much a high-touch venture capital company, which differentiates us. We've been there and done it. We are the entrepreneurs behind the entrepreneurs. My background is not a CA background or an actuarial background. If you look at a lot of venture capital, unfortunately in South Africa and around the world, there's a lot of accountants who've been accountants in big, large accountancy firms, and they try and go backwards. They work in private equity. Private equity and venture capital is like playing soccer and playing rugby. They're two different sports. They're not in the Premier League and the first division. They're two different sports. So because you come private equity, doesn't mean you know how to build a tech venture capital company. We've done that. I've done that for 30 plus years in my life. Our board has done that and helped build many, many tech companies. So that's really what we believe differentiates us. And I want to just quickly you talked about our investment criteria. I call it the 5 T's. Number one, what we invest in is the team. Well, in fact, number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 is all team, 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 and team. Because if it's not the best team on the planet for that opportunity, we don't make the investment. We've seen 1,600 businesses and made 6 investments into Fund 2. Or we made 8 investments in total, but 6 into Fund 2. So we invest in 1 in 200 businesses. And why do we only invest in 1 in 200? Not because they're bad businesses. They're just either not venture capital type of businesses. So we can't see a 10 times return on our capital or 100 times return on our capital. Maybe we see a 2 times return on our capital. And that is not sufficient for us to invest our money behind a 2x return on invested capital. Or they're unfortunately not the right entrepreneurs for an idea, or they've got a fantastic idea, wrong entrepreneurs, or brilliant entrepreneurs, wrong idea. And we just don't make that investor. So, I often say good businesses are not necessarily venture capital investable businesses, but there's lots of good businesses in South Africa. They're just not for us because we don't see that we can take it, not just to South Africa, but right around the globe. We don't see them scalable. And when I talk about scale, that the revenue scale faster than the cost. So as I put more money into marketing and sales, my revenue goes up a lot faster than my costs go up. And that's what we call about a scalable company. Second one is a very innovative technology. So the second T is for innovative technology, not a technology that's me too. I'm not investing in the next grocery delivery app. I'm just not going there. I see 10 a day. I don't want grocery delivery apps. I've seen them. I've been there. I've done it. I get the creepy crawlies when I see them. There's enough of them. I don't do that. I know all of them are growing. And people say, why don't you do that growing? Yes, they're growing, but there's 3,000 of them out there. It's enough. We don't want to see a grocery delivery app. There's no differentiation between grocery delivery app A and grocery delivery app B. We will not invest in them anymore. So we know what we're looking for. We know what's disruptive, and we look at that technology. Number 3, we invest in companies that have got traction. So we don't invest in ideas. It's too risky. We don't invest in products, too risky. We invest in businesses. So they've already taken their product. The market is already telling the business, I love your product. I'm going to buy more on your product. We speak to the customers and they say, when I do our due diligence, and we do a very thorough due diligence on every one of our companies, I'll say to them, if I take the product out tomorrow, what are you going to do? And I say, Clive, I'll murder you because you can't take it out because it adds too much value. And that's exactly the type of response I want to get when I ask that question when I'm conducting a due diligence. So a lot of traction. They've got traction. All we do is pour more fuel on the fire, and we help them take it from 10% month on month to 20, 30% month on month growth. And that's what we help our companies do in the 3rd T. The 4th T is around about the tenacity of the entrepreneur. We want to find entrepreneurs that are hungry. They're absolutely convicted. They've got the conviction and the courage and the curiosity. They're just so tenacious. They will just not give up. However hard times have been, they will not give up, and they will find a way. And those are the type of entrepreneurs we invest in. So we typically don't invest in first-time entrepreneurs, as long as someone on the team is not a first-time entrepreneur, we're happy to invest, but not if they're all first-time entrepreneurs. We just think that's too risky, and we don't want to pay their school fees. And the last one is terms. The last T is terms. We want to invest at the right valuation and the right economic terms and the right legal terms. We want to make sure we look after our investors, but at the same time, we don't want to do a disservice to our entrepreneurs, because our brand and our reputation is everything. So we just want a fair deal. That's all we look for.
Clive, I think there's a question here, and Christopher's asked, I believe that SARS is not paying the offset back. Is that your experience? Is it merely a short-term delay? Maybe you just want to clarify a little bit on how that actually works.
So, I can't comment on that, but most definitely SARS are, I think, if you're a provisional taxpayer, so if you can actually, if you're a provisional taxpayer, when you enter it on you go into the SARS website and you enter it, it'll ask you for your venture capital company number. If you say, I put in R1 million, they'll deduct the million right there and actually not charge you any tax on that. If you are a taxpayer and you're a PAYE payer, they're absolutely paying it back. But, it's nothing to do with Section 12J. There's a form that you fill in and you enter how much you invested and it gets deducted from your taxable income. Now, I assume there are some anomalies like there are probably for RAs or anything else that you might invest in. But that's an anomaly. They most definitely, you get 100% deduction on your taxable income. But as I said, that might come to an end. For anyone that invests post-June, there might not be that tax saving beyond June.
Okay. So look, I think to summarize, we've had a long history with Kaleo. You guys work very closely with Kaleo, and as one of the founders of Kaleo is actually on your board. I think when I look at this, and just today, two other people sent me two other VCs and said, "Oh, do you know these guys and everything?" And I do know them, and that's not the point. In the same way that you're backing the tenacity of the team and the entrepreneur and everything else. I think one of the things that I find fascinating in the years that we've done this is the smart capital that you bring to the table. And so what I mean by that is where you said opening networks and helping the founders grow and go through all those steps, etc. And I think that's one of the things that I just wanted to emphasize where, again, you go back to look at the board of Kalon and the 200 years plus of experience in the space where you guys have done the heavy lifting already. So, I think that's really important. And then the last thing I would say, which is equally important, is that, I've spent a lot of time overseas like you have. And I always find it funny when Americans or English and Europeans, whatever, think that they can come into Africa and it's going to be just the same as what they experience in America. And, I think there's a huge opportunity in Africa for you guys because you've got the local knowledge, of how things work and to some extent how the chaos works in the same place, and how to actually unfold that. So, I think that's just hopefully gives people a bit of understanding of where the world is going and why Lee and I and the rest of the team wanted to, let people know about this Kalon one. Hopefully in the future, we will have a little bit more notice than less than 2 weeks, and we can actually do it properly on the platform and actually take you through a proper digital marketing campaign. But, for everyone who's been online tonight, hopefully there's, this has added a lot of value. If nothing else, it's opened your eyes to what is possible. I know, Lee, that there's a lot of people on the poll that have asked to speak one-to-one with Clive and the team, and we'll be able to go through and actually understand it and everything else. What is the process, Lee, for those that have said they are interested on the poll? Or I know earlier on, Manu actually said, how do I get hold of it? So if they didn't do the poll, what is the process, next steps? Because again, unfortunately, time is of the essence.
I think, Scott, is to get hold of either yourself or Lee and just send in the email with your interest. Lee and Scott will forward that to us at Kalon. We will, if you just please provide your cell phone number, we will call you directly and we'll talk you through the process and send you the prospectus. We can send you a copy of this deck if you'd like to get a copy of the deck and any other information. We'll send you all the information, the investor mandate, and everything you need to make the investment. But just to remind you, if it's less than R1 million, you have to make the investment before 12. Your money has to be in our bank account and your investment mandate signed before the 12 o'clock on the 20th of February. But please do it through Scott and Lee, and they will forward it to us with your email and cell phone number.
No, look, and I think, Lee, you also, because I know there's a number of people that said they were interested in with time zones and whatever. So we're going to put up a landing page tomorrow where people that are watching the recording will be able to click below. I mean, I think where Mark has asked question, will an investor not be taxed after the 5-year exit? What will the 212J companies do if the government does not extend the scheme? I think you've sort of answered that already, Clive, as in 14,000 people will lose their jobs to some extent.
Yeah, but I think I want to make it very clear here that, and I don't want to, investors understand that for us as Kalon, it makes, personally for us, it makes no difference whether they extend it or not. All it means that you as the investor can't put more money in and we can't raise more capital. We will continue running for the next 5 to 10 years. That is not the issue. We will keep them going. Nothing will change. We just can't raise more money when you get your taxable income. So in the short term, all those Section 12J companies will continue for the next 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, or however long their investment mandate is. What they won't be able to do is raise further capital beyond due. So don't worry about putting your money now that you're going to lose it. You're absolutely not going to lose it. Nothing will change. Only we will not be able to raise further capital beyond due. Yeah. We can raise further capital. We just won't be able to give you the tax.
I think that's quite important, and I wanted to emphasize that for you, Clive, because Garth said that on our call, a couple of days ago. At the end of the day, Kalon is a successful business. The 12J is purely a cherry on top of the cake.
Yeah.
And without the 12J, it doesn't mean that you don't have the cake, and the point being is that the cake, the cherry is just the sweetener. But, Kalon's got every intention of continuing, and for all the reasons we've spoken about, the opportunities in Africa, the opportunity with tech, the opportunity, you sent me a video today, which you haven't mentioned, but with all the corporates, post-COVID now coming back in and wanting to digitize. And we found that in our own business, it was so interesting. In the B2B space, we'd be going out knocking on doors, and kind of we were nice to have, we weren't a necessity. And then suddenly, they realized, if they're not digitized, they're dead. And now they're knocking on our door. We've had a struggle having the capability to onboard enough B2B. So, we personally, Lee and I have personally experienced that. And I think with what you're saying about the corporates coming back in, and I just want to emphasize that 12J is a nice to have, but it's not a deal breaker in terms of the overall business model.
Yeah, that's exactly what you say, Scott. I just want to reiterate what you're saying there. I say, if you only come in for the tax saving, don't come in, because we are a lot more than the tax saving. That will give you an 8% IRR per annum if you just take the tax saving. We're looking at 30 to 38%. So we're not about the tax saving.
Excellent. Well, listen, I know that we've got some timescales from your side. I just wanted to finish off for people. And, I think we've spoken so much over the last 2 years around this whole essence of Wealth 5.0 and how there's all these different things between looking at the purpose, looking at the creativity, the high touch. Clive actually mentioned even in their VC firm, how they use high touch, how you use the tech and the digital, how it all comes together. And I think, in terms of what's really important here is that as much as we would like this to be on the platform, the next steps are literally to reach out to Clive and the team. And, as Lee, with our head of community, if there's anything we can do to help, reach out to me or her on WhatsApp or any of the wealth consultants, and we can put you directly in contact. As Lee said, I'm not going to sit here and try and sound like an expert in 12J. I'm not. I'm also not going to try and sound like an expert in venture capital, because I'm not. And that's what Clive and his team are going to focus on. But we just thought that this would be a real value add to our community. Our whole thing is that we want to add as much value to our community as possible with trusted partners. And again, with Kalon and Kaleo coming, this is certainly a long track record for us of probably more than 6 or 7 years. So that's all from myself, Clive. We really appreciate you being online and sharing. And Lee, thank you very much for setting it all up last minute.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Thanks, Lee. And thanks to all of those that took the time out. I really appreciate it. And please don't hesitate to contact Lee and Scott. And I'll reach out to you personally, and I'll give you a call if you want to discuss. So I see there were some other questions. I'm happy to go through those questions with you over the phone.
Perfect. Excellent. Lee, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Clive. I echo what Scott said, and to our investors who have joined us tonight. There were quite a few who did say that they wanted to chat to the Kalon team. We'll be handing your details over to Clive and to Leron, so expect the calls in the next couple of days. And yes, to the rest of you, please reach out to us. Thank you for spending the last hour and 10 minutes with us. We really do value your time as always. Clive, your time as well. And we look forward to helping our investors diversify their portfolios. So take care, everyone. Be safe, and we look forward to chatting to you soon.
Yes, thank you.